build this car. If this is what these things are like out of the box, man, just with some tuning, I can see why people just want to mod them. And it's an auto. Imagine if it was a manual. We could have some fun with this. This thing is so quick, so much fun. Sounds great. Maybe I can even play with some bigger turbos. Yes! Hey, my name's Adam. Welcome back to the channel. And in today's video, we're going to introduce the last car, which is kind of the last missing piece to the puzzle of the trio. And so we're actually here today at Dare to Dream Motorsports. So straight away, I'm going to introduce you now to Jeremy, who's the owner and a good friend of mine.
Hi guys, how's it going?
So Jeremy, tell me a little bit about the shop, what you do here, and how long you've been doing this.
Well, we've been here at this location since about the second week of June is when we opened up. We work on pretty much everything from basic oil changes to performance modifications and everything in between, LS swaps, and we do a lot of different things.
Fantastic. So Jeremy, talk us through some of the cars you've got in here at the moment, just to kind of illustrate the kind of things you work on.
Sure. So Pride and Joy is over in the corner right now. We are doing some upgrades for the 2022 season that's coming up. It's a 1965 Mustang, or 65-ish. It really doesn't have anything left that's 1965. The engine, pop the cover real quick for you. It's kind of jammed in the corner.
Is that a 1965 oil leak with it as well?
No, that is a water leak out of a pipe in the corner.
You heard it here first.
It is a 1965 Mustang with a LS and a turbo strap to the front of everything.
Isn't that sacrilege, putting an LS in a Mustang?
That's what I love about it.
So I've got the RX-8, which is sacrilege having an LS in an RX-8, and Jeremy's got a Mustang, so you can see what happened here. In fact, Jeremy, where did you get your first engine from?
From a guy named Adam, yeah.
Some dodgy English bloke.
Yeah. And so this season's updates are, we're fully pulling out the interior. We're going to do a little bit of cage work, and we're hoping to get the headliner back in. The sequential shifter from S1 is in and updated already. That's a cool piece to use. I wish I had taken more time to actually drive it before we pulled everything back apart, but the last bit is we have now got the independent rear suspension in it, mostly C5 based.
So that's all custom fabrication, is it?
Yep.
And that's something you do yourself?
Yeah. So we did all the fabrication. It's using an S550 Mustang differential with the subframe that's been narrowed up for the C5, because the C5 is actually 5 inches wider than the Mustang, believe it or not. So we cut it, narrowed it up 5 inches, and put it back together. And we're using C5 control arms, C5 actual front upper control arms.
And blocks of wood?
Currently blocks of wood, because we're waiting on the coilovers to show up. So yeah.
That's the first time I've ever seen a suspension made out of wood. So.
It is definitely not the first time I have.
That's brilliant.
Other than that, we've got a few projects. This one's waiting on a wiring harness from PSI. This truck is getting a new LS engine in it as well. It's got sort of the engine in it. It was brought to us as a project. The guy got the engine put in, but couldn't figure out how to wire it up, and the wiring harness that was in it was just junk. So we just ordered a new one. Once we get it put in, we'll get it wired up and looking a little bit better than it has. As you can tell, before it came here, it sat outside for quite some time. It looks a little dusty.
Jeremy will make it look beautiful. And if you've been watching my channel for a while, you'll see the RX-8 and the nightmare of a wiring that was. But it got there in the end, and hopefully it came out nice.
And then we've got my newest Pride and Joy. It's a 1999 Ferrari F355 that I picked up out of a shed in middle of Missouri, and it was just a shell. So we built some of the front control arms, some of the back control arms, And at this point, we are just waiting to get back to it as we are doing the Mustang upgrades. We're collecting parts for this. So all these parts sitting in here, or all these boxes sitting in here, are actually parts for it. We're really debating right now, does it get another LS engine or does it get an electric Tesla swap?
So you're really going for the sacrilege of putting LS in everything.
Yeah, everything I can.
And I think you're doing a channel on this, aren't you? Some YouTube videos?
Yep, we're doing a channel as well. So Dream Motorsports YouTube channel will have all the stuff that's already done on it, and then when we pick it back up, hopefully spring, summer, when we can, you know, have a working Mustang again and off to the events, and we can start putting stuff together in this one. We've got an S2000 that we fully built. This came to us wrecked a couple of seasons ago. At this point in time, we put the body kit on it, did the paint work, and then they got it back and blew up the engine. So it's back this year to get a new engine. So it's got now a built engine in it. It's still an F-Series Honda engine. However, it has a K-Series crank and a bunch of other changes to make it a big bad boy now. So it should make over 500 horsepower.
That's a beautiful car. Look at that.
It is a rocket for what it is.
Look at the size of these end plates. I've never seen end plates that big.
Well, you need them. Yeah, so we just got done, I don't know if I can actually open it all the way, but cutting out the rear tire area, skinning the top of that, because where the spare tire actually sat is now a full exhaust with a giant muffler still, but it comes out the diffuser.
Probably should have brought a light over, but you can just see the exhaust coming out, hopefully there. But look at that diffuser. I mean, it's all carbon fiber. That looks beautiful. So is that something you did? Did you do the exhaust?
Yep, so we made all the exhaust from just in front of the axle. We cut it off and remade the whole piece to go up into an area that fit and actually worked to have a full muffler still instead of just a super loud straight pipe. So he wanted something that wasn't crazy, and we did it. So this diffuser is one that that he bought, but we are making another one similar to this for the Mustang for the new season as well. Skinning the bottom, side skirts, new splitter, everything.
Hang on a minute. I've just noticed the tag on this. This hasn't got anything to do with James.
James Cahill, yeah.
Oh.
So James Cahill is the co-driver of this car.
I've heard a few stories about that.
Yeah.
That's funny. Okay, James, I've seen your car now.
Potentially the reason it was in a wall. But
let's not talk about that one.
And then this one, I wish we hadn't had all the cars in it, because this is some cool fabrication that we've done. So it's a 240Z. We've got full engine build done on this one. So the engine's out of a 280ZX turbo engine. So we did a new crossover manifold to relocate the turbo onto the passenger side, and yeah, just some other cool work, all custom finished up, done in new radiator, intercooler, everything is done under the engine bay, painted engine bay.
That is beautiful. You don't see many of these on the road anymore, and this one actually looks to be reasonably original.
It's fairly original, other than the flares have been added, obviously, for the wider wheels. The owner has all the original suspension. It's got now a bunch of extra pieces modified to it and such. But yeah, so I do believe he's going to keep the majority of it just in case the expense of them spirals out of control like a lot of cars seem to be doing these days.
Absolutely.
Yeah, mostly original. The mirrors were obviously added. It isn't a Japanese car. Those were added from the Japanese car. But other than that, we've just got a few little projects, you know, a Hummer that we're swapping an engine on since it went 394,000 miles and exploded a rod out the bottom of the oil pan.
Holy moly, that must have made quite some noise.
It definitely did.
And then talk about the art piece, because I mean, it's not every day you go into a shop and see half a car on a wall.
No, so that was sitting in a field, just at a farmer's field, until we cut it in half and put it in the back of my truck and put it on the wall. So yeah, we originally cut it in half, then we cut it right at the front of the fender, or right at the back of the fender, and straight down the center of the door. You can see where it was welded back together. Obviously the door, it wasn't cut, we took the door off. But yeah, so we brought it down in 4 pieces and put it back up on the wall and welded it back together. So
That is brilliant. That's a great centerpiece for the shop, so that's fantastic.
Yeah, we like it. Eventually we're going to do a little bit of an old school Datsun paint job on it and put a couple of race parts. We've got some wheels sitting down here for it and a couple other things that we'll put on there and make it look a little cooler, but shop's busy, so we don't have any downtime yet. So.
Oh, it certainly is busy. And talking about busy then, maybe we should talk about why we're here today.
Yeah.
So the backstory to this is the M5 is now registered, so that is great. However, I can't drive it at the moment. With all the work that needs doing, I'm just going to make things worse. So I needed a daily driver, and having sold the GTI, that was the car that sold in literally an hour when I posted it. Having sold that, I was struggling for a daily driver and I didn't want to use the M5. So I've had this for a while. It's had some issues, so I've not been able to drive it very much. So just to explain a little bit more about the car. So I've had the car now for, I want to say 6 months. You've seen it probably featured a little bit on Instagram if you follow me there. So there is a couple of pictures of it there. But it has already broken down on me. So like any new car to you, I always find that you get the issues fairly early on for a used car. And sure enough, I went out one day and it wouldn't start. Thankfully, I was somewhere like Micro Center and got a multimeter to try and check through things, but regardless of what I did, I could not get it to start. So I got it towed home, and after a couple of weeks, I managed to diagnose what was wrong. I thought it was a starter, but it actually turned out, and I did replace the starter, but it actually turned out to be the ground strap. Now, for anyone that's been around BMWs for a while, you'll know that on some models, and this one in particular, the ground strap corrodes, and so I'll show a picture here of how bad it was. Now I did get a new ground strap, and this time I covered it. I don't know if you're meant to, but I was kind of figuring it should make it last a little bit longer because it won't be subjected to the elements. So this is a 2008 335 Xi, but it had an oil leak around the oil pan. And the Miata's on the lift at the moment in the workshop, so I couldn't do it. So I thought, who better to ask than Jeremy to actually take care of this? Because one of the other things about this one is it's quite a job, isn't it, Jeremy?
Oh my gosh, this one is a job. On a regular 335, just the rear-wheel drive car, it isn't so bad. You can have it done in just a few hours, but this one, being an all-wheel drive car, takes about 11 hours plus. Depends on how much you really want to clean up and take care of when you've got it apart. But yeah, so subframe out after you take off all the suspension, axles. The axle shaft actually goes all the way through the oil pan, which is the reason you have to take suspension and axles and front end out. But yeah, once you get there, then the differential comes off and side support for this side axle, and the whole subframe actually comes down, and then you can take the oil pan off.
So hopefully this comes out in the video, but you can basically see how the engine is kind of orientated at an angle. But basically you've got this whole structure here, and then because the pan's at an angle, you can basically see in order to get it out, all of this has to come out, which is where the labor comes in, because you basically have to undo most of the front of the car. In fact, I've got some pictures and I'll post them up here, but basically all of it has to come out. And when you did that then, it wasn't just a simple case of replacing the gasket, you found some other things.
Yep, correct. So when we took down the subframe, we noticed that the passenger side motor mount was in decently rough shape. It wasn't the worst one I've ever seen, but if you look, we kept it right here. It was torn through the actual rubber bushing part, and then it just moves around. So not the worst one. I've seen these actually fall apart when we take the subframe out, but once you're in there, an extra $115 really is money well spent, so you don't have to do another couple $1,000 job while you're taking it apart. So
if you watch any other channels on YouTube, you'll probably hear that expression a lot, which is while you're in there. The one that I heard the most is from Alex from Legit Street Cars. He always says that, and it's very true. You're there, you've already got it all apart, so why not do it? Because it's going to get worse. And for what was it? How much was it? Do you remember how much the part was?
Yeah, I think it was $114.97 total, something like that.
Exactly. So 12 hours labor, $100 for that is worth doing. What else did you find though?
So the other major piece that we found was the front drive shaft. From the transfer case to the differential was pretty rough. again, not the worst I've ever seen. I'm not sure how well you're going to pick it up in the video, but if you can hear it clicking back and forth, that's the universal joint in it, just starting to get worn out. And it only gets worse exponentially once you start to beat it up. So that was another piece that it wasn't quite as cheap, but while you're in there, it's a little bit easier to take care of. So
absolutely. And in fact, when you talk about how much those cost, so from BMW, that part is over $1,000. But there's other people that make it, and thankfully it was around the $200 mark. So that's going to save a lot. And if it doesn't last that long, I mean, it's a fifth of the price. So thankfully it's fairly easy to access.
Yep.
So we can come in here and change it again if there's any issues with this one.
not a bad thing when you're talking, you know, $1,000 compared to $200.
So you mentioned then, once you've done something like this, the alignment shouldn't need doing. It's going to be checked at some point just because it is a fairly big job. Yep. But you noticed a few things when you were kind of tearing things apart.
Yeah, so the things that we noticed alignment-wise was it is going to be a touch rough for the person that really does it for the first time, because I don't think the inner and outer tie rod have been apart for quite a while. And if you can get in real close, you can see not as much on this side, but definitely over here on this side where it looks like they had a pipe wrench to get it apart or get it to turn the last time that somebody did a job on it. And that right there, that Torx bit, is nearly destroyed. That is.
So that's going to be a real problem. And Andy, if you're watching, hopefully you don't get too annoyed if I bring you this car to do an alignment on.
But yeah, as far as other things, it's, other than being, it's from the rust belt, so it's got a few little spots here and there. It looks quite good for the most part underneath.
Yeah, so this car was a local car. I found it in Missouri. It had been on Facebook Marketplace for a long time. And I spoke to the owner, I test drove it. They weren't interested in, changing the price too much, although it had, cosmetic issues. But eventually after a few months, they kind of came down a bit, which is why I ended up going for it, because it was a good deal. But they owned it for years and years. They did a full dealer service on it. And actually, they used to drive it a lot from here to Arizona. So that gave me confidence that how the car had been used was actually fairly good in terms of there's not too much wear and tear where you're just cruising down the highway. Hopefully meant they didn't do too many launches or abuse the car too much. So fingers crossed, it's a good platform to have some fun with. Is there anything else you wanted to go through while we've got it apart, or just in general condition?
Just a few other things while you're doing the job to replace, the easy things to not have to tear apart again later. There's an O-ring between the differential and the oil pan on this side, so we replaced that. There's an O-ring between the oil pan and the support for the drive shaft on this side, or the axle on this side, so we replaced that. But yeah, it's overall a fairly good car. Like you said, high miles, but it looks decent underneath. So.
In fact, did I see some of the old parts just lying around? Is there anything interesting you can see?
Yeah. So we, taking it out, had just one other issue that we really ran into is this bolt is the center bolt on the subframe on the passenger side. And when we went to take it out, just the slightest bit of movement and this snapped straight off. And I knew immediately what had happened, because these bolts go through to the top, and for some reason the gap here between the center lets water just seep in, and then you get a rust effect, and it had rusted all the way. The hole that this actually fits in is like a 1/4 inch around it both sides, and the rust buildup was so bad it was just welded in there. We actually had to take a screwdriver and chisel it out before the subframe would actually come down.
In fact, there's a couple of pictures, so again, I'll dig them out and just kind of show them here so you can kind of see just how bad it was.
Yeah, but at least it was relatively easy to get out. Once we did, we put a vice grips on it, and after a couple of minutes of a persuasion, she came out.
So along with the RX-8 and the M5, this is kind of going to be the other car that's going to be featured on the channel a lot. And the plan with this one then is, with these cars being twin turbo, you can actually tune them pretty well. In fact, there's a website out there, and I think it's for, I can't remember how much. I'm sure it's not $1,500, but it's not too bad. They think they can get it to 500 horsepower. Now we're going to put that to the test. So I'll link the website and exactly how much they claim it's going to cost to do. And then we're actually going to put that to the test by all of the components they suggest. Sorry about the bike then. By all the components they suggest. In fact, that was a Mustang, it wasn't a bike. Sounded like one. Anyway, all the components they suggest, we're going to buy it and put it to the test on the dyno. So before we do any more, now we've got the oil to stop leaking, we're going to go ahead and get this on the dyno, get a baseline, buy those components and run it again. So hopefully you'll enjoy that story and we'll just see if it gets anywhere close to that level of power. What do you think, Jeremy? Is it going to do it?
So I've actually put the turbos from one of the companies on the N54 before. It was actually a 135, but the Pier 600 turbos that we did made over 500 horsepower on the car. We did the turbos. It has factory downpipe and exhaust, and then just the air inlet tubes and the charge pipes all done up. And it was a very fast car for what it really should be for me, just a simple 1 series. So it was a lot of fun. So I assume that it will make a good amount of horsepower.
So we'll see, fingers crossed. So I'll just show you one other thing while we got the car up in the air then. So I mentioned about the cosmetic damages, and in fact, hopefully this comes out. When we got the car up in the air, you can probably see it on this panel that the paintwork here really doesn't match and is, you know, got that kind of, what do you call that effect where it's not been polished out?
It, like orange peel?
Orange peel, that's the one. That's exactly what it is. So you can see that orange peel effect hopefully in the video. But basically, there's that panel. These panels have been done. I think when a friend of mine looked around this, he said, I'm pretty sure there's only one panel on this that hasn't been touched when it comes to paint. So it's obviously that the owners tried to keep it up together, but it just shows that obviously it's been through a little bit in its life and needs some tidying up. So we'll see. Let's go ahead and start having some fun with it. And then comparing that again to the RX-8 and the M5, we'll see which one's the most fun and just kind of tell a story from there. So I really hope you've enjoyed watching the video today. And if you have, like, share and subscribe. Jeremy, do you want to say goodbye?
Yeah. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for letting us do it for you. If you need anything from us, we do oil changes to performance here at Dream Motorsports. So
thoroughly recommend it. So I'll again put a link down below to the shop as well as the website, and you've got to come and check them out. Really convenient, really local. Thanks guys, have a great day. Just a quick demonstration then. So this is the old gasket that would have gone, and you can basically feel the rubber and you can just see it crumbling in my hands. That's how bad it was. I don't know what it is about some of the seals they use, but you know, you'll see this in various different parts of the engine. And then this part is just that external rubber that goes all the way around, and again, just completely deteriorated. So yeah, but that is pretty bad. I mean, it's just crumbling. And this is the kind of thing you can expect in Dare to Dream, their waiting room. I think Jeremy did a really nice job. I'll never tell him that to his face though. Oh look, there he is. But check that out. You get comfort by the fire. There's refreshments. There's even an air conditioner. And then the art. Hey, Jeremy, this one's not straight.
I know, it's because the kitchen's right on the other side there, and that's where they chop their fruits. They bang on the wall, and I can watch it turn when they're doing it. So I adjust it every morning, but it gets back by noon.
That's funny. Do I get a 5% discount because the picture's not straight? You never ask for a discount, right? Nice job.